What's going on, guys? Jake Boley with BarBend.com. Today we're back for another lifting shoe review, and we're going to be looking at the Adidas Powerlift 3.1. Now, back in the day when I first started powerlifting, I actually owned the original Adidas Powerlift models, and since then they've been updated. This is the 3.1 model. I've been wearing them over the last couple of weeks, and I've been kind of keeping in mind how they performed way back when and how they perform now. In this review, we're going to talk construction, sizing and fit, some pros, cons, and for the performance, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to progressively load weight in the review for the squat because this is a high density EVA sole. I want to see if it compresses, show you guys how much weight it can handle. So now let's dive into the construction. All right, now let's talk construction of the Adidas Powerlift 3.1. So in terms of design, this is one of the more simple weightlifting shoes we've reviewed. So bear with me if this is a little bit dry. We'll make our way from the toe to the heel, similar to other models we've done in the past. Up here on the toe, the midsole wraps about evenly around. There's no extra lip that comes up. That could be good for durability, although I do always kind of worry about the boot coming detached from the outsole and midsole itself, but that hasn't been an issue for me yet, and it wasn't an issue in the past when I owned my previous pair. The material up here on the top is a synthetic leather, and there are holes here on the medial side of the foot, and that's for breathability. The leather itself doesn't feel incredibly stiff. As you can see, it moves pretty well, and I feel like it's a pretty durable build for what it's worth. And then it wraps to about the midfoot here. Making our way to the midfoot, we have 6 eyelets that go up. The 5 top eyelets have these little metal loops, so they're a little bit reinforced. Bottom eyelets down here are standard to other lifting shoes. There's no metal or frills down there at the bottom. I like 6 eyelets because it kind of lets you pull the shoe fully tight, especially when there's not a bottom strap, as the shoe only has the top strap. Talking about the top strap, it's one strap, goes toward the top to the midfoot of the shoe, kind of close to the ankle, pulling it fully off. There's a metal hoop over here with reinforced stitching, so I don't think the hoop's going to come off, or the strap for that matter is going to come off very easily. Pulling it fully tight. Realistically, like if you pull it fully tight, there's no strap overhang, as you can see. It doesn't fully hit the ground. That's a cool perk, especially for not letting that strap drag or even possibly break off or affect your lifting. Making our way to the boot of the shoe. So, boot is a little bit stiffer in design. I like that because it doesn't really cause any chafing on the heel, especially on the Achilles, and I'm a big fan of that because that does tend to happen, especially since I wear lower socks when doing different squat movements. So heel, pretty standard in terms of the foam inside. The cup comes up decently high, as you can see here. The stitching here kind of emulates where the cup actually kind of stops. As you can see, that bends right there. So making our way to the heel itself, it's a high density EVA foam heel. It's a little bit different than other models we've reviewed. Similar, like newer weightlifting shoes for that matter, have a TPU heel, and that's more of like a plastic build and it's a little bit more sturdy. This density EVA, while it's sturdy, it's going to be a little bit softer. As you can feel that you can literally compress in the heel a little bit here. It doesn't mean it's going to compress under weight, but it does have a little bit of a softer feeling to it. So the heel itself is like a 0.6 inch, 15 millimeter build. That's like a kind of a hybrid in between the fully flat shoe and the standard 0.75 inch heel of a weightlifter. And then working our way down to the outsole, something that's a little bit different is that there is a thicker outsole layer as opposed to other lifter shoes where it's a little bit skinnier and it kind of form fits better with the full outsole. This bottom layer is a little bit thicker. As you can see, it's a pretty standard design in terms of texture. It's pretty much flat throughout the midfoot, and then towards the heel and the lateral side of the foot, there's this bumpy texture. In terms of gripping, I thought it does pretty well, especially on different surfaces. Obviously, if a surface is wet, I would definitely be worrisome with these shoes because they are pretty flat in design. But all in all, those are the construction features worth knowing on the Adidas Powerlift 3.1. All right, so now let's talk about sizing with the Adidas Powerlift 3.1. So in all of our shoe reviews, I get size 10 models, and that's to give you an idea of how they fit. My foot is a size 10, and it's pretty true to size, so usually things that you don't have to size down or up on fit me very well. In other reviews, I have specified if I think you should size up and down. So now let's see how the Adidas Powerlift 3.1 fits. One thing to note about this shoe is that on Adidas' site, they write that it's made with a slimmer fit, but then if you go to sites like Rogue Fitness, it says that it has a little bit of a wider construction. So I'm really curious to see where that kind of falls. I have a narrower foot, so I kind of like my shoes to fit a little bit more narrow and a little bit more snug and a little bit more slim for that matter. So where is my foot fitting in this shoe? So I pulled the laces fully tight, ample laces up here to tie the string so I could double knot that if I really need to. In terms of toe, I'm right up here about like a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch to the top. I think that's a perfect fit personally because I like having a little bit of room for toe splay and a little bit of room to kind of move around in case there is any kind of toe jamming, but it's not too much to where I feel like I'm unstable or I'm wearing a clown shoe. In terms of width, it is a little bit more narrow fitting than some of the models I've tried before. I can splay my toes here. So as you can see, I'm trying to push out my pinky toe so you can see it. There is full toe splay down here, so I don't think you're gonna be limited in terms of actually gripping the floor with your toes. And in terms of true sizing, I think this does fit pretty true. If you're true to size, I think you could be pretty good with this model. If you want to size up, I don't think that would be a bad thing by a half size because it is a little bit snug on the midfoot here and towards the toe. So if you like having a little bit of extra room, then a half size might be good. So last thing I'll show you is I'm going to pull this strap fully tight to show you the overhang on the ground. So that shoe is fully tight for where I can get it on my foot. And as you can see, there's ample room before that strap hits the ground. So that's also a nice perk that comes along with the Powerlift 3.1s. All right, so now let's talk price of the Adidas Powerlift 3.1. I talked about this in the pros section, but possibly my favorite thing about this shoe is the price itself, and that comes in around $70 to $100. And oftentimes these are on sale, so you can find them a little bit less, and that's gonna depend on what retailing outlet you go through. But in terms of price all around with other weightlifting shoes, these are possibly the best price shoes in the market, and I think that's an awesome feature for beginner or intermediate athletes who are more of like your recreational lifters or are just starting to learn how to lift in lifting shoes. So all in all, price is pretty stellar for this model. All right, let's talk pros of the Adidas Powerlift 3.1. I have 3 things that I really like about this shoe. Number 1, and probably my favorite thing about the shoe, is the price. The price ranges between $70 to $100, and oftentimes these shoes are on sale. So if you're a recreational lifter or you're just beginning to experiment with lifting shoes, or if you just need shoes for just squat days or something like that, very specific, this is a great model because it's a very non-committal price. Number 2, I like the heel height. 0.6 inches. I think that's a good transition height for going like, let's say, a flatter shoe to wearing like a 0.75 or even 1 inch heel. So if you're new to lifting with the heel, these are a good model to kind of go off of. And number 3 is the construction of the shoe. It's pretty standard. All around here is a synthetic leather, so all around you're not going to have too much break-in on the bottom of the shoe near the midsole and the outsole. Also, the strap up here is pretty thick and pretty standard. There's a metal hoop here, so I don't think these shoes are going to break down very fast. Match that with the price, and those are my 3 pros that come along with the Adidas Powerlift 3.1. All right, so now let's talk some cons that come along with the Adidas Powerlift 3.1. My first con is that while it does fit pretty true to size, it's not the most comfortable shoe. It's kind of like a boxy feeling. And then number 2 is if you're a serious weightlifter or you're moving a ton of weight, you might not like the high density EVA foam heel. It's not the most stable. TPU is definitely gonna fare better than that. But all in all, those are my 2 cons, and they're very individual to the athlete. All right, so now let's do a quick performance recap of the Adidas Powerlift 3.1. All in all, I think the shoe does a great job at serving its purpose, which is providing a good lifter for, let's say, the beginner or intermediate athletes. I mentioned in the cons that the high density EVA foam isn't the most stable, but that's comparable to TPU, which is like a harder plastic. So obviously a foam heel is gonna be a little bit more compressible, but again, that's not gonna matter for a lot of athletes. If you're like routinely squatting, let's say 500, 600 plus, then my guess is that you might want a stabler heel, and that's gonna kind of come down to your personal preference, which I'm sure you have by this point in your lifting career. But for the beginner intermediate athlete, I think this shoe does pretty awesome. I squat up to 365 in this for reps, and it felt really good, really stable. So all in all, I think you're gonna be pretty safe around that weight. And in terms of how it performs in, like, let's say a functional fitness workout, since it is a little bit of a softer build on the outsole and it is a little bit of a lower heel, it does fare a little bit better than other shoes I've tried. Like I've tried the Legacy lifters for a functional fitness workout just to give them a try, and I wasn't the biggest fan of them, but I think this shoe does a pretty good job at matching those asks while giving you an elevated heel. So those are my big performance takes on the shoe. I think if you're a beginner, intermediate athlete, I think you're gonna like this shoe a lot. It matches the money that you put into it for its performance. So those are my performance features of the Powerlift 3.1. So that wraps up my review of the Adidas Powerlift 3.1. If you're a beginner or intermediate athlete, I think this shoe is gonna fit the bill pretty great. And I mean that literally and figuratively with the money. But in terms of if you're more of an elite level and you need a very specific shoe, like let's say a higher heel or even a harder TPU heel, this shoe might not be the best for you. To read my full thoughts on the performance, construction, pros and cons, and price, visit us at BarBend.com or search Adidas Powerlift 3.1 and BarBend.